Alibaba just dropped a max class model with 1 million tokens of memory, and it costs $6 per million output tokens. But the preview status is a trap that will break your deployment if you ignore the rules. This is Qwen3.8. It's Alibaba's first open-weight max class model built for long-horizon automation. By the end of this video, you'll know how it crushes closed models on memory and coding, how it powers persistent workers that run for days, and the preview trap that breaks deployments if you miss the rules. If you build AI tools, this shifts the game. You stop renting black boxes. You start owning persistent workers that cost pennies and never lose context. The question is simple. Can you trust a preview model to run your automation loops, or will it hallucinate and cost you? You probably think open-weight models are always weaker than closed ones. Or you think open just means you can plug it into production today. Neither is true for Qwen3.8. Assuming so will cost you stability. Think of closed models like a rented luxury car. You drive it, but you cannot modify the engine or take it home. Qwen3.8 is the blueprint and the engine kit. You build the car yourself, customize every bolt, and keep it forever. Let's start with the memory. You get a 1 million token context window. That is roughly 8 times what most rivals give you. This holds massive code bases or weeks of history without drift. You can feed it enormous documentation and the model will not lose track of the beginning. And in a second, I'll show you why this breaks the standard coding workflow. When you input a large repository, you get a full architectural map, not just a snippet. Old models forget the start of the conversation. Qwen3.8 remembers the first line you typed yesterday. This changes how you design prompts. You don't need to summarize anymore. You just dump the context. Next, the coding power. Qwen3.8 sets a new bar. It analyzes complex structures and generates code that integrates seamlessly. It works like an autonomous pair programmer that can debug and refactor for hours. This is essential for agentic workflows. When you give it a task, it breaks down ambiguous goals into structured plans. It identifies dependencies and sequences actions. A single misstep can derail a multi-day task, so this precision matters. It doesn't just write code, it refactors legacy systems. You can ask it to modernize a module, and it understands the whole dependency tree. It suggests changes that don't break the build. This reduces the cognitive load on your team. But raw memory is useless if the model cannot actually do anything with it. That memory feeds the real engine. Qwen3.8 is built for long-horizon workflows. It acts as a persistent coworker that plans, executes, and self-corrects over days. Imagine an agent that monitors a server, analyzes logs, generates a report, and emails stakeholders every morning for a week. Qwen3.8 can manage this loop, retaining context of previous days' actions. It adapts to new data while keeping the original goal in mind. Most agents die after a few steps. They lose the thread. Qwen3.8 keeps the thread. It can run a workflow for days. It checks in, adjusts, and reports. This turns AI from a chatbot into an employee. This brings us to the economics. Heavy hitters like GPT-5.6 and Opus 4.8 dominate the closed API space. Kimi is also vying for attention in the long context arena. Qwen3.8 carves its niche by offering open control at a competitive rate. Unlike those closed models, you can inspect the weights. You can fine-tune on private data and self-host to slash costs. At $6 per million output tokens, it democratizes max class power. You build without the black box tax. $6 is the price of a coffee. But this is a max class model with 2.4 trillion parameters. You can run this on your own hardware. No API rate limits, no usage caps. You own the compute. This is the end of the rent-seeking era for AI. But here is the catch that changes everything. The catch is the preview status. This is a preview endpoint. Final weights, full benchmarks, and clear licensing are still pending. You can test agentic loops and coding now. But relying on it for critical production without error handling is risky. The documentation might have gaps, and the behavior could shift before the stable release drops. Until the final license is published, you should assume restrictions apply. Preview models can suffer from hallucinations or context loss during long tasks. You need to implement robust error handling and monitoring. If you use it for automation, you must guard against execution errors. The trap is subtle. The model is powerful, but the endpoint is unstable. You might see performance drops. The weights might update without warning. you need a fallback. You need to build your automation with retries and human-in-the-loop checks. Treat this like a beta test, not a production launch. So, what is Qwen 3.8? We looked at the specs, and Qwen 3.8 crushes closed models with 131K tokens and coding power that refactors legacy systems. We looked at the workflow, and it powers persistent workers that plan, execute, and self-correct over days without losing the thread. We looked at the preview risks, and you must treat this as a testing ground with robust error handling until the final weights drop. Qwen 3.8 proves open-weight AI has finally caught up to closed models in power. But the preview warning is your guardrail. Use it to build and experiment. Wait for the final weights before you bet the farm. Subscribe for daily breakdowns of AI tools explained simply, without the hype. That's what we do here, every day. That's the full picture. If this made it click, tap subscribe. There's a new AI explainer here every day, and tap the video on screen to keep going. See you in the next one.